I saw this post on, I think it was maybe Facebook or Instagram, and it was never say never. We've heard that before. Never say never, right? Well, today's call is going to be about the word never, and how I'm not a big fan of the word never right now. In fact, I only think we should use the word never when we say the phrase never say never. And that's what I want to expand off of. So, having said that, what I want you to do for a second, this is important. I want you to really think and see what in your life have you attached the word never to, positive or negative. Whether it's I'm never going to do X, or I'd never be like X, or I'll never do X, or I'll never stop doing X. Like, what is your never? What are some of the things you said never around? Think of that for a minute. There is lots, I promise you, they are there for everybody. Think of a handful, good or bad, right? So negative could be, I'm never going to embarrass my family, right? Positive could be, I'm never going to eat, Reese's peanut butter cups again, whatever. That sounds horrible. I'm not doing that one. I always love my Reese's, but you get my point. So what are the nevers you've done in your life? Positive or negative? Think of a few on both of those. Now, here's what I want to say about the word never, okay? The second you say never, I will never blank, or I won't blank. When we say never, we've now drawn this invisible line in the sand, and we've put this finite label to something, okay? And basically, what you've done, because when you say the word never, what does never mean? Never means from now until your end of time, it's not going to happen, right? From now until your end of time, this thing you've said never to will never appear, right? So basically, to translate, that means you are somehow a freaky fortune teller and can tell what is going to happen throughout the rest of your life, right? How could you are saying that you can predict your future? You can predict the rest of your years on earth, that these things will never happen or never come to be. So it's almost bordering on the line of being arrogant when we use the word never, okay? And we all use it in many different ways, to enforce good things, to enforce bad things, or push away bad things. But basically, here's the thing, ladies, okay? When we use the word never, we've drawn that line in the sand. We've kind of arrogantly predicted the future. And what we've done is, intentionally or unintentionally, we've now put ourselves on this high horse, right? So somewhere, in some aspect, in some area, you are sitting on a high horse. You are above things, right? And there's something beneath you in some area, okay? Now, a high horse is different from high standards, okay? High standards are always welcome. Your high horse is basically an unrealistic immunity to something. Does that make sense? When I say high horse, it means like an unrealistic immunity to something. You think you're above it. And when I say high standards, which we all should have, I mean, you're trying to achieve excellence, right? You're working towards excellence and holding yourself to excellence of yourself, right? Now, along the journey to excellence, okay, not only are you going to make tons of mistakes and failures, but you're allowed to make mistakes and failures along trying to obtain this excellence. But when you've placed yourself on this high horse, okay, you are much higher, which means you have much longer to fall. So when you do fall off your high horse, in whatever area you've put yourself and propped yourself up, it's going to hurt a lot. There's going to be a lot of damage by the time you hit the ground. And so to illustrate this point, okay, I want to tell you a story. And I may have told this story maybe a couple months ago in a coaching call, but I think this is super, super interesting and really, really helpful for you in your weight loss journey to have longevity in this and not burn out really quickly. So the story is this, okay? There was this clinical psychologist, and he was dealing with soldiers coming back from war. And in particular, they were soldiers who were suffering from PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Now, the psychiatrist, he said very interestingly, not majority, but a lot of these soldiers who are coming back from war and who are suffering with PTSD, they do not have PTSD from what they saw, not from what they saw in war. They have PTSD from what they did. Not from everything, all the horrors they saw. It was from what they did themselves. Who they became in life or death situations. They shocked themselves. They didn't think they were capable of those things. And when they were faced with not having a choice, they're traumatized, right? And so to some degree, this same scenario can be happening to you, or you could be setting yourself up for this and you aren't even aware of it, right? This weight loss and health PTSD could be hanging out around the corner. Where have you separated yourself, put yourself on that high horse, right? Said, I'm above it, this is never going to happen, or I'm never going to do that, or never stop doing X, right? And then you're giving yourself room to fall, and to fall a long way down and have that PTSD and shock yourself from what you are capable of doing, okay? And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you haven't experienced this yet, but I want to see by a show of hands, okay, who has made a big mistake in their life? Who's made a big mistake in their life? You can put your hands up real quick. Cool. Now, everybody's hand should be up. Come on. Now, this big mistake, okay, big mistake. Were you ashamed? Were you embarrassed? Could you believe you did it? Could you believe you did that? How could I let that happen? That's what I'm talking about. I want you to think back to the moment where you made a mistake, where you were ashamed of it, and you couldn't believe that you let that happen. Think back to that feeling. Think about how horrible that feeling is, how detrimental that feeling is. What that feeling is, to some degree, is what those soldiers dealt with in that PTSD. It's going down that same path. You're shocked when you do something you never thought you would do, or you thought you were above. If that feeling comes about again, and it hits your weight loss journey, and it hits how you feel about your health and what you're doing to be healthy, can you imagine how destructive it would be? If you suddenly screwed up and you thought that was the one thing I never thought I would have a problem with, it would shatter you, right? It would shatter you. You wouldn't be able to pick up the pieces or pick them up very quickly. You don't want to be putting yourself in that position, ladies. Okay? So I mean, I wish I had a fancy fix for you. I don't have a fancy fix how to get rid of this weight loss, we'll call it weight loss PTSD. There's no fancy fix except to stop using the word never with your actions and what you expect of yourself, right? Stop using the word never, okay? Or only use definitives. So only use definitive statements and sentences when they've been tested, when you've been tested, when you've proved them right. So what do I mean by that? If you're going to go ahead and describe yourself as a loyal person, who would say that they would be a loyal person? Who says they're loyal, they're faithful? Okay. Now, if you're going to go ahead and claim that you're loyal, okay, you better have been tested. Not just hope that you'll be loyal, not just expect yourself to be loyal. Have you been in a situation where you could be unfaithful, where you could cheat, where you could betray and not get caught and not hurt anybody's feeling, and you still stayed loyal? That's the test. Then you can call yourself loyal. This is what I'm getting at. Have you tested it, right? Are you going to be that thing when there's no consequences to not being it, right? Same with calling yourself smart, right? Who'd call themselves smart right now? Put your hands up, right? Oh, smart, whatever. Put your hand up if you think it, if that's what you call yourself. Well, Being good at something naturally is luck, not smart. So if you're good at a lot of things because it came naturally, you're not smart, you're lucky. But if you built a skill, if you worked hard to become knowledgeable, to become an expert in an area, then you're allowed to call yourself smart. Then you've earned it because you've been in a situation where you were dumb, where you were stupid, and you built that smart. So you know it's real. It's not luck. Same with honesty. Who's honest here? Who says that they're honest? Right? We're all generally honest, but are you truly uncomfortably honest? If you had an opportunity to steal money and not get caught or not hurt anybody, would you still choose not to? If you could tell a lie and get away with it scot-free, would you do it? Would you not? These are the tests until you've been put in a situation where you don't have to be those things because there's no more consequences. Would you still choose to do them? And above all else, ladies, this applies to hard work. This applies to hard work. If you woke up tomorrow and you had no money issues, you had all the money in the world, perfect career, dream home, life with everything you always imagined it to be, would you still work hard? What would you be working for? What would you be working for? There's a difference between working hard because you have to pay the bills, because you have to raise a family. You got a mortgage to pay. There's a difference between working hard because you have to. I have to lose weight or I'm going to have a heart attack because my doctor said so. There's a difference. What if you don't have to work hard? What if nobody is watching? And what if there's no pressure and no consequences to you slacking off? Think about it and be honest with yourself, ladies. If there was no consequences to you slacking off, would you still work hard when nobody is watching? And the truth for a lot of people is no, we wouldn't. We wouldn't. When you don't have to do something that you don't want to do because you don't have to, there's no consequences, are you going to be the person that still does it? And that's what I want to get across to you. Those are the definitives that you can say. Those are the definitives that you can say and align your identity with because they have been tested. It is like a scientific theory. You've tested it. You have proven that you are those character traits because you had the opportunity to not be them, to have no consequences, and you still chose to align with them. How cool is that? How much rock solid faith would you have in yourself? Right? I don't want to hope to be honest in a tough situation. I don't want to hope to be faithful. You need to be tested. And that's the dangers of having these never statements, these finite statements, right? These separating statements where you put yourself in one category and you putting everybody else who does that thing in another. And you think you sit slightly above them, whether intentionally or not. And no ill intent at all when you do this, but that's what happens. If that's what's happening, you are creating that bigger gap. You're getting higher and higher and higher onto that horse. And you are building an opportunity for you to fall and fall hard. And fall where you cannot recover. Where you are tested, like we just talked about, and you fail that test. And you never thought you'd fail that test. You never thought you'd fail that test. That's damaging. Think of a test in life where you're like, no, I got that in the bag. What's one thing that you know you'd never do? Like, what's one thing you've been tested on? Write it in the comments. What have you proved to yourself that you would do or wouldn't do? Now imagine you actually failed that thing. How earth-shattering would that be? You wouldn't know what way's up. You'd be like, what? Who am I? Right? And you're creating that gap for yourself, ladies. I want you to protect yourself along this weight loss journey. I don't want you to slip up and have your world end because you thought that was the one thing you never thought you'd do. You know, I hate pretzels, but I just ate an entire bag and I thought that was the one thing that I was immune to. Like silly things like that. Right? Right? I thought everything I lost I'd never gain back. And then you gain a little bit back. You will think you're done. You have not thought that that was even a possibility. So you don't have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. You haven't gone through the emotions in your mind before they've happened, actually. Don't put yourself in that situation, ladies. We are all capable of many different things, good and bad. Things we know we can do, things we don't know that we do. Only align yourself with what you've been tested on and successfully passed. If you have not yet passed, right, I've fallen off and I haven't gotten back on, then you can say, I'm always going to try, right? Not, I'm never going to give up. There's a difference. If you've never given up to this point, then you can say that. But if your past has had you giving up, you can't say it, right? Because you've done it in the past. You can say, I'm going to keep trying. Be very careful with your words. They build your beliefs. They build your identity. And it does not take much to find a crack and then fully expose and we're weak because we're not paying attention. We're not expecting it. There are things we expect, right, ladies? We expect to overindulge over the holiday seasons, right? Of course we do. That's half the fun, right? I love my peanut butter balls. I love my turkey, right? I love my garlic mashed potatoes with the skin on. I'm getting hungry thinking about it. That's something that you can expect, right? So when it happens, you don't question your entire identity and reality. You're safe. You will be safe. But if it happens in an April, and you said, no, April's my good month, I'm never going to, and something happens, then you question who you are and what you're capable of. And when you question what you are capable of, you've lost the game, or you're about to lose the game. Never question what you are capable of, okay? You are capable of anything, in the good direction and the bad direction. That's the exciting part. Because what that means is when we're doing good, you got to appreciate it because it could go bad, right? And when we're bad, it's not going to last long because at any second, you can turn it around. That's how exciting it is. You need to be fluid. You need to not be so rigid with your beliefs and your expectations, and you must not be black and white with your emotions around this weight loss journey. Happy, sad, disappointed, angry, it's a spectrum. All of it is welcome. All of it is welcome. And you will go through all of it. And you will survive all of it. But never say you're exempt from something because you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position and you are rigid. And when you are rigid, you can snap way more quickly, right? And you guys don't need to do that. You don't need to put yourself through that. Be flexible. You are flowing. Who you are changes. What you think changes. What you're capable and not capable of changes. Embrace it, okay? Get away from finite phrases like, I'm never going to do this. Or I'd never do that. It's not serving you anymore. So my task for you ladies is think about where these nevers are and in your life. And they're never usually in the form of a never statement. Okay, they're never as obvious as a never statement. Obviously, it's not that easy, right? So really think in your life, where have I put finite things on who I am? Where have I put finite things in my life and what I'm capable of and what I'm not? Where am I putting these prisons, these blocks, these barriers and borders on things? Because if something happens and you change and life doesn't go according to plan, You need to what? Go with the flow. Go with the flow. And one of the biggest things that I can say out of dealing with hundreds and hundreds of women on their weight loss journey, if you need one thing, it is you need the ability to be flexible and go with the flow. Because if you've been on this journey long enough, you know shit hits the fan. Whether it's right away in your journey, whether it's way into your journey, shit will hit the fan. And if you do not roll with the punches, if you constantly compare it to what you want it to be or what you thought you could do or who you used to be, you will drown. And not only will you drown, you will let yourself down. Because you failed, which is hard enough to cope with, and then you failed at dealing with your failure. If you fail, you can succeed in getting past your failure. But if you let your failure actually be a failure, you've then failed a second time. Do you see that? Don't fail twice in a row by letting the failure actually mean you failed. Roll with the punches, go with the flow. Be more flexible, ladies. Okay? And pick some of those phrases up. Recognize some of the things you say to yourself, how you describe yourself, how you expect your journey to go. Have you thought about where you want to be in a month? Not on the scale. In your mind and in your daily life. Have you thought about what you want that to look like? Have you thought about 1 year from now? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? How do you want to dress? How do you want your friends to speak to you? How do you want your spouse to speak to you? How do you want to spend your free time? What habits do you have? What habits don't you have anymore? Go with the flow. Because if you have this big goal to go towards, this big, broad life goal, you can have so many different paths to get there. That's the exciting part. Do you guys see that? What we normally do is we have point A, point B, and this is the path, right? Straight line. There are many different ways to get to point B. We can zigzag, we can swirl, we can go halfway, turn back, go back. There's so many different pathways to get to your goal, ladies. Take it as it comes, adjust, and let it happen. You are changing. You're like becoming a butterfly. It's exciting. And don't forget what you're working towards. And don't forget that sometimes that straight line from A to B doesn't exist anymore. Is it gone? You may have needed that rigid, strict path in your mind to get started, but I can guarantee you that will not take you to whatever your idea of a finish line is. I can guarantee it. If you've been rigid and strict with that point A to point B, and you're struggling to stay on that tight and narrow, I can guarantee you the tight and narrow will not be the thing that gets you all the way to B this time. Go with the flow. And that starts with watching how you say things, okay? Watching if you use the word never, watching if you're speaking in definitives that haven't been tested, okay? And take those tests as a blessing, right? Take the test as a blessing. I would rather be so stupid and have to earn the word smart than for things to come easy to me, because I've built up zero tolerance to getting back up when I've fallen, zero tolerance to having to work hard for something. These are all blessings. And the only way we recognize that is if we can realize that there are an infinite amount of pathways to get to your goal. So let go. Let go of the one that you think is going to take you there. I can guarantee you it will look different than what you expect right now. I can guarantee it. I can put money down. What you think is going to happen never happens. Completely different or just looks a little different. But that's the exciting part. If something's not going according to plan, that means it's according to plan. Think about that. All right, ladies? So, analyze your thoughts, your beliefs, where your nevers are, and slowly change how you think about them, how your dialogue is, and realize the path you are on right now is not necessarily the path you thought you'd be, but if you're on a path, it is the path. And you can control where you take it.